TNKR Media.
I remember nights after the service that we'd all go and have a drink together, and some of these kids are like, I want to kill myself.
Yeah.
The level of depression, of constantly being told you're a piece of shit, was overwhelming. And I, as a North American, had a completely different attitude. I would laugh it off. I'm like, I have a nice life back in Montreal. I don't need these people. Those kids needed that chef.
Welcome to the Salt Lick Podcast. I'm David McMillan. I'm here with my co-host Lesley Chesterman. How are you, Lesley?
Good morning, David. I'm hot. It's been very hot in Montreal lately, and I keep looking at the weeds in my garden and thinking, oh, I should pull them, but A, it's too hot to weed, and B, they're growing faster than I can pull them. I want to point out that, speaking of weeds, by the end of this podcast, we're going to get into the weeds a little bit with a controversial topic about abuse in kitchens. So after we talk about weeding, we will get into the weeds ourselves later on in the podcast. I'm sure you're surrounded by weeds in the vineyard, but do you pull your weeds in the vineyard?
Well, we mulch we're under the regenerative agriculture regimen here at Hayfield Farm. We're certified regenerative organic as well as organic, but we'll see about that. I would like to talk about that at one point on organic certification. I've encountered issues with it. So eventually we'll have to talk about my issues with organic certifications and how I feel it's a little bit of a racket. But anyway, yeah. So we remove all the weeds in the vineyard. I either mulch them in, or I have this machine on the back of the tractor which basically rips them and pounds them into the ground. And then we have another thing called a Thiessen star weeder, which is for weeding underneath the vines. I'll take a picture of it and I'll send it to you, and you can put it on
our Instagram page,
on the Salt Lake Podcast Instagram page. And because it's a weird piece of equipment, and it's made by Ryan Thiessen here in Canada. Usually all this stuff is made in Germany or Poland or whatever. And this is a Canadian made vine carriage underweeder. It's as well has other agricultural applications. It's a cool looking piece of machinery. Anyway. Apart from that, we're at the stage in the vineyard right now where we have beautiful clusters. The flowering's over. The grapes are formed. The bunches are beginning to close. The rows are very nice and neat, and we're beginning to pull the leaves off of the grape area for one reason, to get the sun to pound down on the actual grapes, and the other reason is when we do apply certified organic, copper, sulfur, whatever, sprays, that we avoid, botrytis or mildew on the actual grape cluster. But that's kind of a labor intensive thing, right? So we're just walking down the rows, pulling leaves by hand all day long. Super boring. It's hot.
But I was also thinking, David, you have 3 daughters and a very little son, and you're not asking them to get down and start pulling some weeds? There are too many weeds. Do you get them to do stuff in the vineyard?
We have like 13,000 grapevines here. Right.
But you do have 4 kids. 4 kids. Giving them a row each every day.
Flynn loves to drive in the tractor whenever he's in the house with Andy, and I turn on even any of the tractors. He just panics and he comes running out, and he has a look of horror in his face, like, "Papa, you're gonna leave without me?" And honestly, it's the cutest thing in the world. He just wants to sit on my lap, put his hands on the steering wheel, and he can stay with me in the tractor for like 3 hours. I'll send you a couple of pictures where he's actually fallen asleep inside the tractor twice last week, which is, he just has to be on it. Boys are different than girls. My girls couldn't care less about the tractor.
Eventually he can do it when he's like 8. I guess, kids in farms start really young.
Yeah. We're very sensitive to that stuff, and, it sounds cute.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
But we've had, I think every agricultural community across Canada has, horror stories. And we had one occur last year up the road here. Sometimes, there was a young person doing her chores, and one of her chores was to, empty out the horse barn with the little digger, like these little kind of scooper machines.
Mm.
and she took maybe a little bit too big of a payload of horse manure. And when she went to dump it at the area, the little digger flipped over on itself, and she unfortunately passed away. So,
What?
yeah, yeah. And there was another situation, I think around Saint Jean-Baptiste last year, where some guy was giving the children a ride in the shovel of the tractor, which seems like super fun.
Yeah, right.
But it wasn't secured, and it came undone, and the kids fell out of the shovel, and the shovel fell on them. So,
Ugh.
I have to think very carefully, even for myself, right? Because I'm alone here sometimes, farming, and you know, and I never, I was always careful in the kitchen, but not careful like this.
Yeah.
A mistake here is, you lose a leg, an arm, a finger,
Right, right.
or your life. You flip the tractor with a full sprayer on it, you're as good as dead. You get your clothes caught in what they call the power takeoff. You're finished. So there's a lot of things. So children around tractors, it's you have to think, rethink, think again, and it's super serious. And I'd love to. I apologize for this. I didn't want to shed negative.
No, no, no.
But if anybody's listening to this and they think it's a good idea to get in the ATV and go for a boot, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a machine. It can roll over. You can hit a rock. You can do all kinds of dumb things. And tractor it's a serious machine. It's hyper dangerous.
Yeah, the farm stories are my great uncle in Saskatchewan. I remember when I was really young meeting him, and I remember there were some fingers missing, and thinking, "Whoa!" And got caught in the combine.
When you go here to the grocery store, in Bedford, nobody's from Bedford who listens to it, but sometimes I'm always like, especially if it's Thursday around 4 o'clock, I'm waiting in line to pay for my groceries, and I was like, "Fuck, people are really ugly here,"
Oh,
But I'm like, and I realize like. It's because everybody's like missing an ear, a hand, an arm, a foot. Like everybody here is missing a body part, And I laugh about it, and I look at
right.
Andy, and Andy's like, "Shut be quiet. What are you doing?" But I go, everybody here's like been mangled by farm machinery. I think,
Hmm.
Uh,
That's going to be you one day, so be careful.
yeah, but I am, like every
Yeah.
day when I gas up everything, I tighten all the bolts on everything. I do this. I learned this from my friend Jonas in Prince Edward County, actually, which is a subject we'll move right into. Like to take a meditative minute about, like I'm about to get on this tractor. Is everything set? Do I have water, enough gas? All those things, and just like kind of like think for a second. Like you just don't jump in it like you do in the car to go get milk at the corner store.
Hmm.
You have to take a minute of inflection to say like, let's not die or lose a
Be
hand.
mindful.
Yeah.
Did you, but that also is just the same as working in kitchens. I know when I was young at cooking school, I once got caramel all over my face, making a croquembouche, and it took a long time to heal. But did you ever, and there's that famous ad, which every time I see it, I break out into sweat, of the girl. There's a woman in the kitchen talking about how she's going to get ahead and how wants to be a sous chef and all this. And she's holding a big pot of boiling water, and you see her slip, and that's the end of the clip. And did you ever have, and of course I saw people stab themselves in the leg. I cut every finger on my hand. Did you have any serious kitchen accidents?
Yeah, for sure. I cut basically half my finger off down into the joint, like you would cut the chicken wing off a body of a chicken.
Yeah, yeah.
I got right into the joint. I've cut the whole thumbprint off my thumb twice.
Wow.
And crazy glue works, just so you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
which is pathetic, right?
Any bad burns? Any
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've had bad burns. I have scars on my legs.
scars? Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Scars that don't go away.
Mm.
The worst thing I ever saw, and people love it's not even like a weird thing. It was just, I think, rest his soul, but Alex Roland, a chef that I used to work with and be close with, who worked with me with Nicolas Jongleur and so on, who was a great cook and a great, funny guy. He worked at Georges Blanc and a bunch of great restaurants. He was quite talented. But one evening, I think he went out for a cigarette around 5 o'clock and sat down on an 18-liter bucket that they have in restaurants. They won't usually have French fry oil in them, like
Yeah.
the canola oil bucket.
Yeah.
But this bucket was from Ecolab. It was not specifically Ecolab. It was a dishwasher chemical, right? And he sat down on the bucket and proceeded to smoke a cigarette and get up and go back to the kitchen. His whole life, he had basically a third-degree chemical burn
On his ass.
size of a circle around his ass.
Oh,
So,
God.
he sat down basically, and I don't know, I would presume it to be some very kind of concentrated chlorine or concentrated bleach, that one of the three or four chemicals that, we plug underneath dishwashers. So he basically sat down on the lid has a little indentation where I guess the chemical gathered, and he sat down on that and had a perfectly round burn
Oh my God.
around his bum. And it was super painful. Like when we were doing service, and he all of a sudden I turn around and his pants are on the ground,
Ugh.
and he's spraying his butt with dishwasher spray hose.
Ugh. That's awful. I would never even have thought of that. I mean, for all the cuts and burns.
Yeah, exactly. A chemical burn.
Right.
I've seen some weird slicer cuts. I saw a guy
The
cutting
slicer.
calamari frozen on a slicer. When you cut, you can thaw the calamari block out like a little bit so you can machine slice it. But when you're slicing calamari on the machine, you've got it open at about like, maybe 3 centimeters, which is it's a big opening. And, and he was going guardless.
Yeah, of course. Of course he's going guardless.
So
Yeah.
he's holding the block and pushing it through.
Why would he put the guard on? Exactly.
You can't put the guard on a calamari block, right? Because of the size that it is, right?
Okay.
And so he's going guardless, but then his foot slips, and he drove like his index finger and his thumb basically all the way up his arm into the slicer. So when he pulled it out, he had a huge flap of skin hanging off his arm.
God.
And we were just like, oh man, this is not good. I
Whoa.
think we just took a dirty apron and wrapped him up and sent him off to the hospital with the chef in a taxi. And we never saw him again.
Everything when pastry chefs, when they're always cutting cakes into three, you get a genoise cake or something, and you get them frozen. And of course, you have what they call a couteau de scie or a serrated knife. And when those knives are new, that is the knife that a lot of people cut themselves with, because you think you won't cut yourself with a new serrated knife. And you put that through a half-frozen cake, and so it's not frozen, and then you hit the frozen part, and then it goes flying into your hand that's holding the cake on the other side. I almost lost my middle finger with twice with a frozen cake. So it's these half-frozen things and these sharp knives, and it's not cutting onions. Although in cooking school, when I was a cooking school teacher, on the first day of class, the amount of Band-Aids we had to give out is unreal, because all those kids don't know how to do anything. They all have new sharp knives.
Yeah. And it's funny. I learned at a point, you're 100% right. Right. It's also, I remember cooking school, when you'd burn yourself, it would hurt so much. And like, I can burn myself now, and like, there's almost a mechanism in my brain that goes, oh, you burnt your hand. And I just go to the electrical room in my brain, and I can turn off. I can just look at my hand and go, no more pain. And it stops to hurt immediately, which is insane.
Oh, but the burns, I think they're the worst.
Yeah.
It hurts more than a cut. It's crazy. Look, this could be like a whole show. Send us your cooking accidents.
Yeah, cooking accidents. That would be a hilarious show, and also very grim.
My sister worked at a place where a guy put his hand right through the juicer.
Oh, I saw a guy drop his glasses into the deep fryer when he's shaking French fries, and his glasses fell into the deep fryer.
Don't tell me he reached.
So his reaction was to plunge his hands into the deep fryer to get his glasses back, right?
Yeah.
So that ended not well either.
It's usually when you're tired. It's usually when you're not concentrating. You're thinking about something else or talking to somebody. Or
the most accidents that ever happen are because of the stupid veal stock or the chicken stock. You got that giant, some restaurants are meatheads. You'll have like a 60-gallon, two-handled stock pot with no bottom drain, right? Basically just simmering away on the stovetop, like overnight, all into the next day, like 24 hours or sometimes 3 days, And then we would, wrap a towel around our wrists run it through the handle, and then take down like these 60-gallon tanks of veal stock, and then try to tip them and, strain the stock and the bones into buckets, right? So many times we created like an incredibly slippery floor
Yes, the floor.
situation because we're straining stocks, or just the person you're holding the stock pot with, it's too hot and they get burned or they drop it. Like the most accidents have been with stocks. I even think to a point there was a CSST communique based on a French communique where they were saying like, "Hey, stop making stocks,
Right.
okay, you idiots," because half of the accidents that
coming from
happen
that.
in kitchens are stock related. So,
Yeah, but the grease on the floor, and then somebody sprinkles salt all over the greasy floor, which is supposed to help somehow,
that doesn't work.
And people falling downstairs. I know a guy who fell downstairs holding a huge container of pastry cream, hot, hot, hot. Ended up landing face down in the pastry cream at the bottom of the stairs. That was in France. Terrible. I mean, we could go on. There are so many bad things that happen. But I want to hear about your dinner in Prince Edward County.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I love Prince Edward County. I went down to Prince Edward County this week. I was invited there by Jonas Newman from Hinterland Winery, who's now also, he owns Hinterland Winery, him and his wife, Vicky, but he's taken on the job of head winemaker at Grange,
Oh, okay. Right.
which is a very beautiful, old kind of historical county winery. It's been there for a long time. I'd say a little mismanaged, over, the last decade. But the team there, it's a new team. They've been kind of onboarding staff. And I think the last 4 years, the vineyards look beautiful. The wine cellar is gorgeous. I tasted through, the new products from all of Jonas's, new wines off the property, and some stuff that they get from Niagara, like is the norm in Ontario, a lot of Niagara
Grapes.
fruit. Yeah, they can buy Ontario, right? So
Oh, you think that's good? You think that's good that they can do that? I mean,
yeah, it's great. Why not?
oh, okay. You're all for that. Okay.
Well, listen, if you're in France and you're in the Jura, why couldn't you buy grapes from the Rhone Valley? If you're in the Jura, why couldn't your friend in Burgundy give you 2 tons of Pinot and you give him 2 tons of Trousseau?
But are you getting the appellation, but under the AOC?
Well, you're in France.
So you're not, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, you still make your AOC wines on your property, Chesterman, Jura, Poulsard.
Right.
That's your thing,
Right.
and that's AOC. But, your new best friend in Alsace just offered you 2 tons of Riesling. So you're still gonna make, Chesterman Riesling and love it, right? So it's diverse. You can buy grapes, and the system works.
But that's interesting. But sorry, Dave, but that's what you're saying is really interesting, because I think that maybe 30 years ago or 20 years ago, that idea of making kind of a signature vin table with whatever grapes you want and going against the AOC was kind of not done. But now, even at the latest wine show here in Montreal, the Vin de France table, so that they're working outside the appellation, was full of really fun, dynamic wines. But I mean, were we seeing that 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Well, some of the best wines from Italy are Vino di Tavola.
True, all the Super Tuscans, right?
Right. And then some of the, like, I think if I recall properly, like what you just said, I believe La Grange des Pères, which is, one of the most iconic red wines from the south of France, to be our vin de table de France. Many of the great wines of France, a vin de table can be the most horrible thing in the world. It could come in a plastic bottle and cost €2.
Right.
But it could also come in a glass bottle with a proper cork, a wax top, and be €100.
Right.
Right. Because it's a broad category where there's less rules,
Right.
but a good winemaker or a good winemaking company is transparent with those rules. Say, this is the second you grow Cabernet Sauvignon in Provence, you're screwed. That's not an authorized
Right.
grape for the area. But the thing is, Cabernet Sauvignon, Côte de Provence, tastes delicious,
Right. But is that a recent phenomenon?
No, it's been going on for years.
But is it exploding? Like, is it much more accepted?
It's more accepted. And of course, then the natural wine thing comes along, and there's
Right.
kind of less rules to that even.
Right. The rebels.
You kind of like have to look at it too from an empathetic right? Like, you look at terroirs like the Jura that get a frost every fourth year, right? And when they don't set up, like, they don't have windmills like we do here in Canada. They don't really do the geotextile thing. So when the frost hits the Jura, it knocks out 90% of the vineyard, right? So you're talking about families that have
Right.
no fruit, right?
Right. Or the Okanagan, to give it more of a recent issue, that they had to buy a lot of grapes from Washington, didn't they?
I don't know. Did they let that happen? I'd have to read up on that.
Yeah, they had a massive frost. I'm going to be going to the Okanagan at the end of July, so I will report back on.
Yeah, find out about that. I'd be curious because
Yeah.
I've had issues with like listen, at my farm here. We'll be making all the wine at my farm this year. I sell grapes to other neighbor winemakers as well, which I'll continue to do. But I kind of find it dumb that we're in Canada, that I can't sell grapes to Ontario, or I can't buy grapes. Jonas is my old friend in Prince Edward County, and I'd love to make a wine with him, which is basically a ton of Pinot from my farm and a ton of Pinot from his farm. Like, I'll take a ton of Pinot and I'll give him a ton of Pinot. We'll both make a wine. Well, we can't do that. It's illegal. So in Canada, I can't buy fruit from Ontario to make wine, which is dumb.
Right. But okay, but wait, what about the logistics of that? So if let's say it's Pinot and you want to ship it to Ontario, that's a lot of time that those grapes after picking are ending up being pressed, right?
No. It's acceptable. I can take
Is
a
it?
small
Okay.
refrigerated truck.
At night, you drive it at night?
Yeah, we pick it. We pick it in the evening or early morning.
Okay.
Drop it in the refrigerated truck and goes. It's 3 hours. It's nothing, right? Even California, Southern California to Northern California,
Right.
there's grapes that ship. By the way, on our highway in front of you, near your house,
Right.
Ontario sends an enormous amount of grapes to Nova Scotia. A lot of Nova Scotia wine is made with Ontario grapes.
Huh.
But that's like 18 hours in a refrigerated truck, multiple tons.
Wow. Okay.
And they also ship juice, unfermented juice.
Huh. Okay. Great. Wow. Okay. So back to Prince Edward County.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry.
No. I think I distracted you. I think I did. Yeah.
So they wanted to do a little dinner, kind of.
A little dinner. How many people?
Well, it just 40. I think we're 52 people.
Okay. That's a medium dinner.
Yeah. So I really like this chef in the county called Paul Tobias.
Of what restaurant?
I met him at another restaurant he worked at a couple of years ago. I had a great meal there. He's a sweet guy. And then I found out Paul was the chef at Grange. So I was like, oh, that's super cool. I totally want to see him again. So we kind of texted back and forth, wrote a little menu. It's very easy to do. I don't like to roll into another restaurant and
Take over.
5 days of prep to feed my ego. I just said, let's make the people happy and this kitchen staff happy. And, let's do some good, easy country food I wanted to do the food that, fits at that winery, basically, right? There's that main hall, the Great Hall at Grange, is this beautiful old 200-year-old barn with a massive fireplace, beautiful wooden tables, mismatched wooden chairs. It's just gorgeous. So, we kind of did the dining room setting, beautiful. And it was fun because a lot of the old senior winemakers came out, like Andre and Jeff Hendricks, who basically was like, he's an icon. He's like one of the pioneers.
Interesting. Jeff Heinrich, former writer at the Montreal Gazette.
Yeah. And he wrote a book, A Fool in 50 Acres, which is a lot like.
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
You should go see him when you go to the county.
I should. I had no idea he was there. It was a girl called Natalie Goldberg Fife, who we both know, who told me about Jeff. And I'm like, from the Gazette? And it's a great book, by the way, if anybody wants to read it.
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
It's very entertaining. Maybe it'll stop people from wanting to own a vineyard. David, did you read it before you got your vineyard? Yeah.
Yeah, no. Jeff is one of the reasons that I started this nonsense.
Okay.
And Jeff is like to be commended. There should be a plaque, honoring him in Prince Edward County. He's one of the original weirdos that was kind of studying that area, studying the geology of that area. The geology of Prince Edward County is just so fantastic, so bizarre compared to anything I've seen in Quebec. It's basically a rock slab, right, of Canadian shield, just basically pure rock with a very thin layer of topsoil over it. Very rocky soils, poor soils, excellent for viticulture. And before viticulture, Prince Edward County was basically making tomatoes,
Right.
canned tomatoes and ketchup. For a long time, the only one of the vocations of that island was tomatoes and ketchup. I think for Heinz and Hunt's, right, for a very long time.
Interesting.
And then people discovered that the waters are crystal blue. The swimming is excellent. And, I've watched it. I've been going for about 15 years and I've watched it change and grow. And
Who was the first serious winemaker to set up in Prince Edward County?
that's a good question. Hinterland's been there like for a long time. I think they're one.
Is it Rose Hall? How long?
Rose Hall's been there. That's a pioneering winery.
Yeah.
Rose Hall, I would say.
Clausen Chase? I don't know.
They've been there for a long time. Great winery for sure. Grange has been there for a long time.
Stanners, long.
Stanners is newer, but
Newer. You're right. Yeah.
and Hubs Creek as well. Carlo Estate, all cool. And there's some hybrids there now, and there's a couple of really fancy new wineries coming around, like Red Tail, of which Jonas is managing. Used to be a small, like 3 or 4 acre Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay winery near Consicon, and that's a massive winery now with like a massive winemaking building. So, but it's still called Red Tail. It's not at the original property. That's a new thing. And I saw this a beautiful other property now that's coming of age called Volta, which is being farmed by, in my opinion, one of the greatest grape growers in Canada, Edgar Ramirez, who I've had the opportunity to buy fruit from in the past. So
John Zabo he's starting a vineyard over there too.
I think he has a small vineyard there. Yeah.
Small vineyard. I have a question for you. When you, because you spent a lot of time in Prince Edward County, when you decided to start your own vineyard, why did you decide on Quebec and not Prince Edward County, being so familiar and a fan of the region?
The kids.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say it's too expensive.
No, the kids.
The money. No.
It's actually probably less expensive, to be honest. I could have bought a winery there for all kitted out. I've had opportunities to buy things there. I was looking at this winery called Chadsy's way back when, which is gorgeous on the water, old beautiful buildings, beautiful house, and it was very inexpensive at that time. But I couldn't get the financial group together, and the kids is always a thing. Like I just can't.
Of course. Yeah, you just can't move around. Yeah, every week I spend my time looking at beautiful houses in Italy, and I'm like, oh, I could afford this, I could get this, and I'm like, oh no, the kids. I have 2 kids, they're here, they can't move to Italy, and also my Italian is non-existent. So, but yeah, okay, so that's and how was the dinner? What was your menu?
We did banga cauda with vegetables, and then. Terrine. We did some summer terrines, which is kind of like a summer sausage terrine. I did another terrine, which is basically duck, foie, gizzard, but like big coarse grind and sliced very thin. So a little
nice
German meatloaf terrine stylings with like local pickles. Paul did this great job of foraging the area. We did a lamb's quarters salad. Real watercress out of a county river that I was kind of worried about for a second, because I said, if I'm going to poison everybody in the dining room, it's going to be with the real watercress from the county river.
Because watercress grows along the edges of brooks, right?
Correct. But, the brook, you never know what's upstream from a brook.
In Brittany, my ex-husband's grandmother said that when she was young, they got tons of watercress along the brooks, and today there's none. Because of all the engrais, all the fertilizer that goes through the brooks that pollutes all the water, and there's no more watercress.
Yeah, it's super sad. Yeah, it's we've lost so many natural resources. We keep on losing more. And yeah. So you had watercress, but you didn't kill anybody. No,
good.
No, everybody's fine. We made porchetta. Paul is I want to do chicken with morels, but we're getting too late in the season for fresh morels. I kind of thought that I could secure some. There's really good chicken in the county, and really good cheese too. But anyway.
Really good cheese. Okay.
Yeah, well, there's a couple, but yeah, they have a nice they have a nice little community of artisans. Sky Hall is a winery. They also make cheese.
Light Hall.
Sorry, yes.
Feta. They make feta.
Light Hall is also a cheese place, and that's kind of cool. Cheese good, and I brought some Misica Jersey Royale super ripe cheeses. And also at the main course, we did porchetta with chipolata sausages. Thank you for Phil Vien to get that order ready for me. And we did boudin noir with maple bacon, and that did not go well.
Why? Why
As
not?
much as I love the county and those wonderful people, they just not
They,
French.
they don't like blood sausage. All right.
No, they're just not French. They're just white people.
But blood sausage, it's Irish too. It's Irish and English.
I don't know. Everything. I've all been there for too long, and
Yeah, right. You're right. You're right.
it's just like I knew that I was like,
Taking a risk.
yeah, I was like, yeah. Even as I was like plating it upstairs, I was going, this is gonna backfire. Watch.
At least you didn't serve rabbit.
And everybody had a piece, kind of, and like, oh, it's nice. I remember my grandfather loving this. I think I heard that line like 7 times, And I was just like, come on, guys. But you know what? Everybody was, what's this salad? What's this? I was like, lamb quarters. What's lamb quarters? I just walked out to the front of the winery. I ripped one out of the vineyard and I passed it around and said, yeah, this is a common weed in every Canadian's. Dude, it grows around your downtown condo in the concrete. Okay. Lamb's quarters are delicious. They're edible. They're better than spinach. And they grow everywhere and they are free. Just don't get the ones near the dog park.
Right.
Do you like lamb's quarters?
I do. And I really like purslane.
I have so much growing in the vineyard right now. I was mowing yesterday and I saw down in the Pinot Noir, all of the purslane is coming in. Super cool.
Purslane's delicious too. And dandelions, of course, are delicious. All these weeds, I mean, lamb's quarters, I can see them from where I'm sitting in my garden. It grows in my front lawn.
Some people call them duckfoot something.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Duckfoot spinach, I think.
Ah, okay.
Because the leaf looks like a little duckfoot.
Well, yeah, you're right. Huh.
Yeah, so some people call it duckfoot spinach, or yeah.
A lot of weeds are edible, but speaking of eating strange things, I want to tell you about my dinner last night.
So you went to Sushi Nishionkazi, my favorite restaurant, and
yes, which was a real masterclass in seeing sushi in a whole different light. Because I think also in Montreal, anybody who grew up in Montreal grew up with restaurants like Katsura, which was actually run by Japanese people. So no disrespect to Katsura, but what we were seeing was everything done in a more commercial way, in a large. There are probably 100 seats in Katsura.
Well, I go so far as saying that, there are no true sushi restaurants in Montreal, aside from Sushi Nishionkazi. There are restaurants that do kind of Japanese food, but idomai, sushi, 8-seat counter, you arrive at 6, you leave at 9, and another sitting comes in at 9:15, I believe, and finishes later. You saw it. I think maybe it was with your first idomai sushi counter experience.
Yes. Now, can you tell everybody idomai sushi what the criteria are?
Oh God, I'm not like the master on this, and I know if Julian listens to this or my other idomai fanatic friends. Idomai is a period in Japan basically where a particular chef, a visionary chef, decided to prepare the food of his area in a certain way. There was this like key moment in idomai sushi where a man, I believe it's Suzuki, if I'm correct, I'm probably 100% wrong, basically started coursing out the food. Also, these are all the fish from the bay of you're right, and the preparations. Of course, you have to think back then pre-refrigeration. I don't want to disgrace myself, so I'm going to avoid talking about that. Google idomai sushi, and and now there's different versions.
I asked you to describe it because I don't remember.
There's some people who take it super seriously, like Julian and them. Like it's the Taliban level idomai sushi. All the fish are wild. There's nothing outside of the traditional regimen. So you'll see no wagyu, no foie gras, no nothing. Like it is only based in true Taliban style idomai. It is like a big ask because it's a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
Sake is a massive learning curve.
Yeah.
And I'm basically an expert on French cuisine or European cuisine in general. I'm an encyclopedia as well as you about all of, Europe's cakes and sausages and hams and cheeses and sauces and birds and like we could have a long conversation.
Or North American, David, because there's also this whole North American cuisine that we never really take seriously, but American cuisine or Canadian cuisine, whatever that is, every day changes. But this is our world. This is our palate. This is the way that we were
Yeah.
formed as eaters eating this. So I think what's interesting about last night's dinner is that you're experiencing a lot of textures and flavors that I think you have to be extremely open to the experience and say, I'm really eating the best of the best when it comes to fish and seafood. And there's a huge element of trust. But the chef, it's Vincent, correct?
Yeah.
I was sitting right in front of him, and I've never seen a more pristine counter. I've never seen.
Right, a master. Eh? It's just that. It's like watching TV.
Yeah, one thing that happened is I was with three other friends, and we were all talking a lot, and I felt sometimes that kind of dinner is almost you'd want to almost be alone in your corner, and it's very difficult to concentrate on food when you're also with three people you're trying to talk to and catch up with. But I love watching him. I love the Julian and Vincent, and he has an apprentice also, Vincent, who's very charming. But it's all very light and happy, and the whole experience was extremely pleasant. Just for anybody who's interested in going, it is extremely expensive, but when you look at the price, I think it's justified. When you look at the quality and the work and the attention to detail, and you actually get quite a bit of food.
Did you notice the beautiful, not stemware, but his pottery ware?
Oh, his pottery, 13th century Japanese pottery, everything. Sometimes I said, this looks like what I made in my first year clay modeling class, which is true, but I should have kept those things. But it's a whole experience. There are some things that I liked more than other. Everything that was a nigiri sushi. I was so thrilled when they said, from now on, at this point in the meal, we would like you to eat it with your hands, because I've always eaten nigiri sushi with my hands, and I see people struggling with the chopsticks and turning it sideways and too much soy sauce, and the people who are putting they're putting the green stuff, wasabi in the soy sauce. And I'm like, oh my God, when I see people putting the rice in the soy sauce.
I bet you ate very little soy sauce, maybe on one or two courses, perhaps, I believe.
The only soy sauce came with the first wild sea bass sashimi.
And it was very little.
On the most beautiful plate. The whole experience esoterically is incredibly beautiful and calm. And one thing that was really interesting is if I had been eating steak and French fries and tons of Cabernet Sauvignon last night, I would have woken up today feeling like absolute shit. And I know that feeling because half my life has been that. And this morning I woke up, and I drank a lot of sake last night. I woke up feeling like a fucking fairy. I could have flown downstairs. I ate so much, and yet, there's not a lot of vegetables too. So I'm starting to wonder. But I felt so great after eating this food. I'd never felt full. At one point, I'd had my fill.
And it's 23 courses, basically.
It was a lot. At one point, I kind of said stop. I didn't want the second round of sea urchin. It's not my favorite thing in the world, although their sea urchin was like eating crème pâtissière. It was the custard-like texture.
Oh, yeah. If you're going to eat sea urchin somewhere, eat it there, yeah.
And I just felt that if you're going to have anything anywhere, it's in the hands of these people who have the best of the best. And it was definitely an experience. I mean, there are things like the hairy crab I'm eating, and I'm like, this is so full flavored and something. The raw shrimp, suck out the head. Okay, it's very bitter, and I'm like, I'm not really into this. But you know what? It's okay. It's nice to experience it.
Did you like that lobster course? Did they give it to you?
I did. The raw lobster with the roe that you have to mix in.
Do you like that?
Yeah, it's very nice. It's kind of gluey, gelatinous.
It's not my favorite. I told them, though. I said, it's heavy metal for me.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. So it was, but look, either you love to eat and you're interested in this. I just don't like eating that way when I know the ingredients aren't first rate and I'm a little worried about everything. But there's so much trust in that experience.
But these guys are like, I love Vincent. I love Dewey. I love Julian. I've known.
Is Dewey the apprentice?
Yeah, Dewey's the apprentice.
He is so charming. He's
yes.
very, very, very great. Yeah.
And there's just zero. Like, there's not even like, oh, we need to compromise a little bit because that's not happening.
Oh, there was no compromise. No.
It's just like, it's the best or nothing. There's no middle ground. There's no talking to him. It's just like, I don't think that guy's an anesthesiologist.
Yes.
He's a very learned doctor.
Julian, just for everybody.
Julian is.
Yes. What's Julian's last name?
Don't.
Okay. Yeah.
So, he's a very learned fellow, and there's only one way for him to do things, and it's perfect, which He's a tedious friend to have. I laugh at that.
Because he's too
No, but
persnickety,
it's insane. It's like
right? Because
black
he's
or
insane.
white. It's right or wrong. It's good or it sucks. There's no, you know, tasting wine with him. It's either this is amazing or this is shit.
Not my thing.
Yeah. No, not my
Oh,
thing.
oh, oh, I see. Okay. With him. Okay.
Yeah, it could be Pudding Morachet. He's like, this is garbage.
Oh gosh.
The
Okay.
end.
Right. But one thing about speaking of Pouligny Morachet, which is we had all this beautiful sake throughout the meal. Now, years ago, I went to the Japanese consulate, and the consul general said that he did not like having sake with anything rice-based. So he said rice with rice didn't work. That's what he said. So I kind of always kept that in mind. I kind of wished I'd been having green tea because I felt that the sake, although beautiful, I felt that there was so much going on the plate that I couldn't concentrate on both at the same time. And sometimes the flavors are very strong in the dishes.
Well, listen, there's no wrong or right answer to that.
Right.
The right answer is they're there to sell sake or wine
Right.
or tea.
Champagne could have been very nice with all of that.
You can do that though, but people do. They sell. Julian has a beautiful champagne collection in that restaurant. And there's no wrong answer.
Right.
That's the food that they prepare. According to the market, and you can have whatever you want to drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's on their list.
Yeah.
If you want to just do beer or highball cocktails or whatever, it's absolutely fine.
No, I think next time I would just maybe do green tea so I could focus on one at a time. I'd almost like to have all the sake separately and all the food separately. And there's a lot going on.
Did you have that sake with the ice in it? Did he give you that?
I don't think so.
The blue bottle with a penguin on it and the sake served on ice?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's not a really fancy sake, but it's like
Yeah.
it's cool to have sake with ice too as well.
Yeah. The whole thing is a olfactory, not overload, but a very interesting olfactory experience. And not everybody wants to go out to eat. If you want a steak and Caesar salad, this isn't for you. But, there comes a time after all this eating we've both done in our lives that not that you want something more, but that you're curious. So even if it's like the lobster dish or me sucking the brains out of the shrimp head and I'm like, ooh, that's bitter.
It's cool though, that's the only place in Quebec that's ever served, which is kind of a testament to how pathetic we are at fishing. In my whole career, I had a long career, a ridiculously long career. I've never, like most Matan shrimp available on the market is basically boiled at sea and frozen and then thawed and then sold to restaurants. And then when you see those big, shrimp, Matan shrimp meat,
Right.
those are horrific. Those are chemically peeled at sea in hydrochloric acid.
Right.
Right. So they know that if they drop the shrimp in the hydrochloric acid in a giant basket, like a ton at a time, that they know after, let's say, 3 minutes, all of the shell and everything is gone and all that's left is the meat. So they bring the meat back up and they basically rinse the meat and then they package the meat. So if people knew that when you're eating those beautiful pink Matan shrimp, like they're basically salad shrimps, right? They're chemically peeled at sea.
And treated with sulfur, correct? So if you have a sulfur allergy, you shouldn't be eating shrimp.
And that's a testament to Julian, who's just like, no, I'm going to find them. Right. I think he must have spent a year on the phone, tracing the fishery. And finally, Julian basically is the only person who has raw Nordic shrimp and the permission to have them by the fishery. And, it's kind of cool. Like, it's just like how stubborn he is. Like, I feel like, God, that should have been me. It should have been me 15 years ago that found the way to get the raw Nordic shrimp.
I think I'm happy that he's an anesthesiologist and a doctor handling all of these things,
Yeah,
but
totally right.
Just for people to know, if you're interested in going.
Does that give you a kind of feeling of safety?
Oh, absolutely. And I was with another doctor, my friend Anand Sahai, who is a fantastic, he does endoscopy and everything. So I'm there with two doctors and they're talking doctor talk. And I felt so comfortable because I've had food poisoning 3 times this summer already and I don't want to get it again.
Yeah, it's not like a good grade 9 high school dropout chef who's decided that he loves to do sashimi.
Oh, no. Oh, my God. Who goes to the bathroom without washing his hands or her hands? Who knows? But no, it was not like pharmaceutical. I mean, but also it's very sensual. So it's not just, this kind of aesthetic. It's also the whole thing it's very sexy, all of this food. And the whole thing was very cool.
I've been lucky to eat there just with, I think I've had dinner there three times. I'm lucky to have had dinner there three times. And I think the first time I ate there, I just ate with my daughter Dylan.
Mm. Did she eat everything? Did she eat everything?
Oh yeah, Dylan's super down. And we were both spending quiet time together, listening to Bill Evans jazz and just enjoying each bite and discovering each bite. And I've been hearing about this damn place being built for 4 years.
Mm-mm.
So it meant a lot to me to go eat there that first time. And then the second time I got to go with Peter Hoffer. And Peter Hoffer,
Who's an artist for people who don't know, a beautiful, incredible artist.
yeah, check out Peter Hoffer, Google Peter Hoffer. Check him out on Instagram. He's a great Canadian painter.
Amazing.
But Pete is not like Pete likes hot dogs.
Right. Well,
And Pete likes tomato sandwiches. Pete likes
who doesn't?
Cosell beer from Ontario.
Yeah.
Pete even was my friend, and he used to come to Joe Beef all the time because he was generous with the art with us. We had a lot of paintings of his in the restaurant. I have a lot of paintings of his in my homes. Pete couldn't care less about my personal cooking or the cooking. How did you like the veal stew, Pete? He's like, yeah. How did you like the duck? Like this half crispy duck that I've been working on for days.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's okay. Whatever.
Right.
As I love Pete for that because he was never
right over the top.
Didn't liked $8 wine and liked $100 wine. But to him, it's all wine. He's got a very healthy way of looking at food and wine, and just doesn't really care.
But I'm sure if you asked him about other painters, he would have something to say, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of this painting? Right.
Yeah, he doesn't like much of it.
There you go.
But I brought him to sushi, Nishionkazi, and it was I could see that for the first time there was a spark in his eye. He was like, oh, this is different. He was really. He appreciated the art. He appreciated the Bill Evans music. He appreciated, the craft of Vincent. And for him to watch Vincent work, he knew that he was watching a highly skilled individual who spent thousands of hours, getting to where he is. Right. This is, I think, Vincent's second counter job in his life. It isn't hey, you're really good on apps.
Right.
You're on Fish next week. You got out of school in May. And by August, you're basically the new de facto sous chef because someone quit. And by January, you're the chef, right? That's unfortunately, a story that goes on too many times in North America. It even maybe happened to me a little bit too quick. I believe I became a chef way too fast.
For sure. Not you, but tons of people, especially back in St. Lawrence Street in 2000 and whatever. Every kid who just got out of cooking school was suddenly a chef,
Yeah. From the dishwasher to the appetizer station to all it took was one guy to get fired and another guy to quit, and you were the chef because business must go on.
Yeah. That is a beautiful thing about that sushi world is you really have to earn your place big time, that.
And you have to be his boss that he worked for keeps tabs. That's that community. Listen, we have one restaurant like that in Montreal. One.
Yeah.
There's.
Although, David, I will say that but as much as I enjoyed the experience, it didn't ruin other sushi for me. I mean, that's not, maybe it would ruin it for you.
No,
but
it shouldn't. Listen, a big futomaki roll, full of egg and even crab stick.
Avocado.
Kind of delicious.
Yeah. But so just for people to know, the price for the menu, I believe, is $450 a person.
I think it ranges anywhere depending on the market because I think they close 2 days. They order from from Japan basically, and that's a very weird thing that I'm curious about learning more about. Right, how they purchase tuna, who's the best tuna cutter, what makes what urchin better. These are still readings that I want to further my education in. And then having those contacts and just being allowed to buy fish from the best tuna cutter is just not you just can't call them and they'll sell you fish. You got Vincent's pedigree has to, and his ex-boss basically kind of has to vouch for him, I presume. And, you need to be in the circle of trust, right?
Right. They won't just sell to anybody.
No, that your tuna doesn't end up in a discotheque in Calgary, right?
Oh my God. Right, right. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Or a strip club in Montreal. Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that, So the best at the job, the people who, who are serious want to sell to the restaurants that are serious, and that's takes a bit of governance on both sides.
Yeah. And it ends up being expensive. So when I say it's expensive, it's because everything that you're getting is the best of the best. Also, for people to know, it's on St. Lawrence Street near Fairmount. It's interesting that when you get there, you can't go in unless you have a reservation. You ring a doorbell, and it's. Did you say it's 8 people?
And don't show up early. You show up at 6.
Oh, I showed up at 6, and my wonderful friend, who I did not pay, my wonderful friend Morris paid. I think he probably showed up early, but he always shows up early. But yeah, and it was yeah, a very special place. I mean, for people who really want an experience, don't go with a bunch of friends. Don't go there even if you're really rich for a bachelorette party. You are there to really experience the.
Yeah, it's a quiet restaurant for ideally for 2 or 4 people to go and
Yeah.
be, in a at peace, show up on time, have the experience. It's got kind of like going to watch a play, and interactive play, and then when it's time for you to go, and if it's for you, it's going to be a wonderful experience. And I understand that it's not for everybody. I get that.
Yeah, and it is expensive, but how much is a hockey ticket these days if you have good seats? I mean, how much is a concert these days if you have good seats? How much is I want to go to the ballet next time I'm in New York, and the seats are $400 where I want to sit. So it's all relative to everything that is kind of top-notch. Experiences these days are expensive. Gone are the days of $120, gone are those days.
Let's go back to a subject we talked about recently, but we're looking at a restaurant, in my opinion, that's of the caliber of a 2 Michelin star restaurant.
Right.
And that's the price of a meal in a 2 Michelin star restaurant. So, that's exactly what that is.
Oh, absolutely. It's like $1,000 for 2 these days.
Nishi didn't get a rated in the Michelin Guide because it opened after all of the inspectors had been through Montreal. The date of opening was after the inspection of the current guide in production. So I believe that, Nishi, will probably perform quite well in the next guide. I'm not saying, not to jinx it or anything like that, but, in my experience, that's a 2 Michelin star level meal with everything that goes into it. The sake list, the wine list is a masterwork. I mean, Julian's been collecting wines over 20 years. Did you look at the wine list?
I did not. It was all just brought. It was all like a dream. It was all just.
It's one of the most ridiculous wine collections. It says basically his private collection that's been gone back to the SAQ and processed for a restaurant. He's got an incredible wine cellar there for wine aficionados, and it's neat. I don't want to make this sound like a plug, but it's a restaurant that was very special to me, run by people who are very special to me, and I was really happy that you got to go and just kind of see, because I've talked about this kind of like eating for a little bit now, and you're always like, what the fuck's on with you? I'm happy that you had a experience there and a positive experience.
Yeah, and I would really like to thank my wonderful friend Morris for treating us, because it is expensive, and I don't think I could have paid for that on my own unless I really put $10 aside for 4 years. But yeah, no, I'm always into these experiences. It's food can be so many things, and that's just such a great example.
It's definitely a special occasion restaurant. That's it. That's how we have to look at it. Unless you're uber wealthy, and you want to eat that every week,
Yeah, and don't have a hamburger for lunch the day you go. You have to really take it seriously. I fasted before I went. The whole thing, and yeah. So it's nice in a city like Montreal to have a restaurant that is an experience, because one thing that is kind of dying is this kind of gastronomy and these tasting menus, and I kind of like that sometimes, because I thought a good tasting menu, when it was really mastered, was like a night at the theater, was like an experience. So it is a little bit like a tasting menu, the way that we ate last night, but it's just a little bit of everything. And it's funny because I said sometimes we'd be talking and the sushi would be sitting there, and apparently what has to sit there no more than 50 seconds or something before you.
5 seconds.
Oh, 5 seconds. Okay, well, there you go. So
When he lays it down, you should basically go eat
you
it.
have 5 seconds to eat it because it has to be everything has to be room temperature and yeah. So anyway, if you can go, if it's a treat. It's a treat. It's an experience. I don't say it's a treat. A treat is a chocolate cake, and it's funny because at the end I turned around to Vincent and I said the last dish is a melon, which is very very typical in very high end sushi places, and I said, "Where's the opera cake? Where's the chocolate mousse cake?" Because in Montreal, you would go for sushi in all of these places back in the 90s and stuff. And then for dessert, they kind of plop down, it would be green tea ice cream, raspberry sorbet, and they would always have a chocolate mousse cake, right? So they'd be like, would you like chocolate mousse cake? And you're like, I can't think of anything I'd like less right now. So I was joking. I think he looked at me like, what are you talking about? But anyway, do you remember that? There was always these
Yeah,
weird
yeah, yeah.
desserts in these sushi places, but that didn't fit at all. Anyway, so that's great. Now, we want to get into a really serious topic. Not that the last ones weren't serious, but there was a huge, actually not huge. It was kind of a happening that La Presse wrote a story calling out abuse allegations, I think, from 23 former members of the restaurant towards the chef of Europea, Jérôme Ferrer. And I know David and I had privately some discussions about this. And, I think ultimately we feel the same way on many issues about this. Abuse in restaurants has been coming up forever. We were both working in restaurants where I witnessed so much abuse in restaurants in France, a lot less in Quebec when I worked here, besides people saying you're an idiot. But I saw die hard, like bad abuse in restaurants in France. You did too. When I read about this happening in 2025, I just think, do customers have to know what's going on behind the doors? Are there other professions like in law offices where young people are being treated like shit too?
Of course they do. They get treated like crap in lawyers' offices, at the hospital. Sometimes I hear this like, it sounds like the only worst place to work is restaurants, and
Well,
everything else is enlightened and great. My wife's a teacher, and there's weird people at her work. In a corporate world, there's misogyny, and more educated women make less money than a less educated man doing the same job.
of course,
That's abusive.
that's the norm, right?
Restaurants are a tough environment. There's a sense of urgency. We're often not dealing with, like, you're not dropping out a university or a law program to go into often the staff that we get to work with are pretty much last chance, failed at high school, failed at CEGEP, might have a substance abuse issue, might have daddy or mommy issues, might be a little bit feral. It's a great job. It's like mechanics kind of thing, not anymore, but like back in the day, grease monkeys that had to fix 8-cylinder, 6-cylinder cars. Anybody could do that. Today, it's actually a very specialized trade. But cooking, for me, like, I wasn't working out in the school system. That just didn't, the way my brain works and the way that I carry myself, like, cooking saved my life. I went into restaurants and it gave me the discipline that I needed, right? It was chefs who taught me to shave every morning, to make my bed every morning, to change my sheets in my bed every week, to always fold my towel, to put my shoes properly by the door, to brush my teeth, to save some money. Like, I learned 99% of what it took me. I'm not blaming my parents or anything, but the discipline, the drill, the attention to detail. I learned all of that in very disciplined, rigorous kitchens. I was mentored by great men, but I've also worked for fucking horrible, racist, misogynist,
Right.
verbally abusive scumbags
Right.
that happen to be genius cooks, So I gotta stick around, take the abuse, because I kind of got to learn everything that's going on in this guy's head, right? So I've been in a couple of those situations, right? Called fat, called stupid, called slow, called Canadian.
Canadian, yeah. The worst, right?
refuse, son of a whore, all that stuff. I've been punched in the ribs. I've had hot oil thrown at me. I've had salt thrown in my eyes. It sucked. Like I went to bed crying a bunch of times in Europe.
I would say in Europe that I worked with the first time I worked there in Lyon, I worked in a kitchen with a lot of young kids, some of them really on the verge of being delinquents. I mean, really, I thought that these kids, if they didn't end up in that pastry shop, might have ended up in prison for the rest of their lives or just living on the street. That was a big shock to me. Yeah.
You're 100% right, especially in Lyon. Lyon has a history of, La Mère Brasier, the famous Mère Brasier, and the famous even Bocuse and Brasserie Georges and all these restaurants were well known
Yeah.
for once your kids were expelled from school, parents would grab their kids, throw them in the car, and drop them off at the back door of Pub Bocuse, and they'd say, "This is your problem now."
Right.
And Pub Bocuse would basically put them all in a dormitory, make them 7 a.m. till 11 p.m., 7 days a week, and kind of save their lives a little bit and ruin their lives.
Like the army. Like it was very, but our chef, who was a good chef, I mean, world champion of whatever, was a total dick to them all the time. These were all young kids. A lot of them were only 15 years old when I worked there, and some were older. And they were all also mean to each other, by the way. The older people were terrible to the younger kids. There was also kind of a kind of mutual love despite all this abuse. They would all probably protect each other. If one of them got in trouble, they would have all gone to help him. The second time I worked there, I worked for a chef who I really think he was a male voix de France. I really think he had a few screws loose. And the way he talked to the staff and all the chefs there were really, really good, really sharp. He just talked to them in the most demeaning way every day. Vous êtes des sous-merde. That means you're the shit under the shit. And they would say, "Oh no, we're the flies on the shit under the shit." And this was kind of funny, but having been there for 8 months, after a while, I remember nights that I'd be after the service that we'd all go and have a drink together, and some of these kids are like, "I want to kill myself."
Yeah.
The level of depression,
Yeah.
of constantly being told you're a piece of shit, was overwhelming. And I, as a North American, had a completely different attitude. I would laugh it off. I'm like, I have a nice life back in Montreal. I don't need these people. Those kids needed that chef. They weren't allowed to talk back to that chef.
The problem is abuse proliferates abuse, and even
Yes.
early on in my career as a young chef in my 20s kind of thing. Listen, I'd learned from brilliant cooks that had a great work ethic and beautiful attention to detail. They were highly skilled cooks. I aspired to be like them, but unfortunately, the tools that I was given to, one of those tools was to speak at people, in a way that was short, fast, and not great.
Yeah.
I grew out of it maybe too late, and maybe one of the last of the Mohicans, but my tenure at Globe, I yelled a lot and said dumb shit for sure. But what I did it. I admit it, and that's that.
Yeah, even when I was a cooking teacher, I mean, I had all these Italian guys I was only 27, but they're all tough Italian guys who kept telling me they're going to blow up my car, although they were joking and giving me a hard time. Very easy to, pretend that the female pastry teacher, just forget about it, don't show up to class. And I turned into a really hard-ass bitch so that I would get a level of respect. But I never called anybody a piece of shit. And when I was in France, I heard this all the time. And after a while, I would just think, this guy's an asshole. And this guy has massive rage problems. And this guy is actually losing his skills because all he's doing is spending his time screaming at everybody all the time.
Yeah, but you know what? The funny thing is, and you have to feel sorry for that guy because that's probably all he knows. And that was a completely how he was processed.
Yeah, absolutely. But David, there was another level of it for me, is that he would yell at us all the time. And when I'd be doing the dishes, he'd come up to me and he'd say, "You have beautiful eyes. You look so nice in that apron."
So creepy. Guys suck. Dear men, you suck.
I love watching you walk across the kitchen. Okay. And then there's another guy who I worked with who was hard on me because I needed a lot of lessons about maybe showing up late and shit like that. Every day, he'd pull open my cooking vest and put his face down the front of my cooking jacket and smell me. And he'd say, You smell like freshly ironed sheets
Ugh.
every day for
I,
months.
I apologize on behalf of all fucking men.
Okay. So there's another side but the guy smelling me didn't bother me as much as the guy calling me a piece of shit, right? Because this kind of abuse, and I don't know about you, but I'm hard on myself to this day, and I think it has a lot to do with this. Yes, you always have to, question your work and see how good you are in any profession. Back in the law office, back to the doctor, back to everything. But it really does take a toll. And those kids I worked with, I could go home. I went back to Montreal, but those kids had to move up to the next restaurant. And who was the person giving them the recommendation letter? The abusive chef, right?
I think they've done a great job though in a short period in France and Europe. Christian Lesquier and he's such an inspiring chef in Paris, and he basically was. He 100% for sure grew up in that regime. Okay, like there's no question. He's way older than me, and he basically said the buck stops here,
Right.
and that's it. And he changed everything, and he basically turned all of his Michelin starred restaurant. I think he might have the most Michelin stars right now. If it's not him or Ducasse, it's probably him. But he basically turned all of his restaurants into schools.
Or no abuse environments.
No, not like zero.
Right.
No, he goes, and these are all learning restaurants for young people
Right.
to learn in. And I think, he's probably very affected by the death of his son. He lost his son to a drunk driver, a devastating, horrible story, because he was always a very empathetic gentleman. And I think he doubled down on it after that. He was really like, no, now we're more than ever here to teach young people to be good humans and produce nice food. And we're going to relook at the mathematics of how all of this works again. And, he's of an age of a man who goes home after work. But I know from my friends in Paris that he's constantly searching out young restaurateurs, and he goes to eat at their restaurants, and he meets them, and he gives them words of encouragement, and invites them to eat at one of his restaurants. Not that he's necessarily there, but his assistants make sure that all of these young chefs have the opportunity to go eat in one of his 2 or 3 Michelin star restaurants. And I've heard so many stories, even in my last trip there, about all the work that he's doing to just basically it's a cool job if we can rethink this, because we're all of us working together inside of a kitchen, processing, fruits and vegetables and beautiful fishes and meats, and, learning about oils and nuts and products. It can be, the most natural, beautiful, loving job if you get rid of the
Right.
fucking 1,000 years of fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the idea of just working in a kitchen and listening to jazz music or news radio, I would have loved to work in a big room with you and Bertrand and Nicholas and Alex Roland and and Fred, and just suppliers come in the back door.
Right.
We make beautiful food. We eat together, and we watch out for each other. We're civil to each other and kind to each other, and then we go home to our families.
Yeah.
I've never fucking had that experience ever once. It's so fucked because it's such a beautiful job.
It really is. And I think today, you see now what the shift that has happened is that because staff is so hard to get, now suddenly we can't scream at people because we don't want them to leave and we can't replace them. Is that a reason? I mean, there's a book by Eric Ripert called 32 Yolks that anybody, if they really want to read a very, very interesting account of abuse in kitchens, it's the way Joël Robuchon treated his staff, and Eric Ripert. And also, not just abuse, but stupidity because of the pressure he felt to be Joël Robuchon with all of his empire and his stars, that they had to support him. So even stupid things about the cooking they had to do that was wasteful or ridiculous. And at the end of all this, he became a Buddhist. And then he said, I won't abuse people in my kitchen. David, there's another side to this, which is, I'm sure if I told my ex-husband this, who great pastry chef, started when he was 14 years old, the hard way, got yelled at, etc., treated like garbage, he would say, well, that's the job.
A lot of people still say that.
And he would say, well, you need a lot of screaming to be good, or you need to, it is a very fine line between this kind of abusive stuff and just really being tough on somebody so they're better. But if we go back to the Ferrara story, the thing is that there was a lot of allegations of insults, swearing, throwing things at people. As a customer, do we have to know what's going on behind? Do we want to know, or should we know what's going on behind that door? Because we all love Mario Batali until all these. Now, of course, these are much harder allegations. Rape. By the way, he was not convicted of any of these things in court, just to be clear.
Mario Batali?
Yeah, although there were videos, etc., but he got away in court. I mean, although he's still kind of canceled. But when we're talking about canceling chefs, there are a lot of chefs over the past 10 years who, with this Me Too movement, have been canceled. And, some have come back into there are winemakers. There are all kinds of people.
Talking about me? Am I canceled? I think I'm kind of canceled a little
No,
bit.
but there is a winemaker. But there's a winemaker in Prince Edward County who I will not mention. Who there's always still a debate over should people be buying and drinking his wines. A lot of people have been canceled along the way, but a lot of women now are saying, well, this Me Too movement is now faltering, and that a lot of this kind of behavior, it can come from, President Trump down.
I just, in my case, I believe in the legal system still maybe too much,
Right.
I just don't think it's up to a reporter, and then it's like, okay, there's this one bad apple, but that's a business that exists as an entity. It's a business entity. He has business partners.
Yeah.
I don't know. I struggle with, like, what are you writing the article for? To sell newspapers, to really for journalism. I don't get it.
What happened here?
Why don't you just fill out a police report?
Well, what happened here was when he got a Michelin star, there was a lot of an outcry from former employees saying, how could this guy with what he does get a Michelin star?
Is that what happened? The former employee said that?
That led to a lot of talk. And when there's a lot of talk, journalists pick up on this because that's your job. And
he's never been loved, it seems, and the restaurant community always failed to be down with him.
Well, I will add that I myself have a personal experience with this chef. He knows it. I know it. That he tried to get me fired, accused me of corruption on one of the most ridiculous made-up fantasy ideas ever. I am not a fan for that reason. I know that there are a lot of other chefs who scream and yell in their kitchen, and they didn't try to get me fired, right? So there are a lot of situations with chefs who do this or that. We've all, there's a lot of gossip. There's a lot of talk, not only in Montreal, but every restaurant city, of who the bad seeds are and who does this. There's a lot of gossip. True, not true, who knows? But as soon as...
The ones that offend me the most are the ones that try to act like, like the woke restaurateurs, right? But in fact, are not. Right? That always gets my goat. When you use like woke culture as as marketing for your brand.
Oh, well,
hilarious.
Yeah, there are a lot of issues here. There are a lot of people with a lot of rage issues. There's a lot of pressure when it comes to finances. There are a lot of people who are doing drugs and drinking. You wrote about this yourself. There are a lot of reasons why people can lose it, right? But I also think that back to my case, if somebody is accusing you of something absolutely ridiculous and trying to get you fired, well, that's not a rage issue there. That's I don't like the critic and I'm going to get her back. Even as a critic, there are a lot of critics who will say that they've experienced a lot of pushback from chefs because they don't want you around. It can get very heavy. So I think the thing with this situation with Ferrer is that when this big reportage came out, they also had an article with people saying how much they loved him. So they're I guess they're playing devil's advocate here, where they're saying,
yeah, have you seen his I knew that we were going to talk about this today. I looked at his Facebook page and he basically has all of these people comments off. giving these, and I get, that as many people who've had a bad experience there.
Sorry, finish up, David. You're saying they're giving this kind of personal
testament that they had a great experience.
Testimony of how great he is. Yeah, right. And how great a boss he was. And
the fact is, like, I'm sure there are people who believe that.
For sure.
I'm sure people had a positive experience.
For sure.
Because you can't just be like a full-on tyrant.
Right.
Right?
Oh, yeah, right.
But you can be a full-on tyrant at 20% of the staff,
Absolutely. This is a big thing in this world of gastronomy and restaurants and everything, is that if we go back to the situation, do you want to know when you are making that reservation whether or not your chef treats his staff badly? Does that matter when you make that reservation? I think it matters to me when I make that reservation. I think in 2025, it should matter. We didn't really know what was going on for a long time there. But I think any chef in 2025 who's raging at his staff and calling them assholes and you're a piece of shit and throwing a pot at you, you should get some therapy. Get the fuck out of the kitchen, go and lie on a psychologist's couch and get some fucking therapy,
Or, just fucking don't lie. Just say, yeah.
I do yell at my staff.
But I fucked up. I have done that. I'll do better next time. I would like to apologize to everybody who feels like I've slighted them.
Well, the amount of denials.
I will go on I'll do an interview with the writer. Let's how can I say? We're not going to tar and feather the guy or push him off a cliff, right? To err as human, but hopefully that this is something that makes him a better person.
But the amount of denials.
That bothers me. That's the thing. It's like
that bothers me, and I agree with you totally. I mean, when it comes to screaming and all that, you can say, "Yeah, I do scream in my kitchen. I have a very high level that I'm trying to achieve, and sometimes I lose it." Like I said, if you watch that incredible documentary called Chef Georges Perrier, the chef there, all he does
what an asshole
through the whole documentary is yell at everybody. You're a piece of shit to the waiters, to everybody.
It's terrible. I can't even watch that. It makes me so upset.
It's so upsetting. So it's not like he'd be the first.
That's a stain, I think, on Philadelphia still to this day. You know that?
The great thing about that documentary is the end, though. I mean, anybody who wants to watch it all the way to the end, because the last scene is really touching. Anyway, but a lot of these guys, like you said before, they were abused by their mentors. The chain of abuse carries on forever. Hey, David, my dad yelled at me constantly. And what do? I yell at my kids constantly. And I know I'm doing it. I'm like, don't turn into your dad. Don't turn into your dad, right?
Let me tell you, I just a parallel to that. So, I walked out of like a crazy, I think I've been working in France and Dijon for a horrific guy who I actually like today. But it was a rough ride. And then I went to working for Nicholas again for like the third time, right? Back in the day. And then I got a job at Souk Harbor House at Vancouver Island. And at that time, I was like full metal jacket, assassin,
chef.
Young chef with his knives. Pay me, I'll travel. Let's fucking go.
Right.
I don't have a girlfriend or a care in the world. I own nothing. All I want to do is work. Right? I was nuts. And I ended up at Souk Harbor House, which the whole kitchen.
They're all wearing sandals, right?
Is painted, but like in hippie paintings of flowers and fish jumping in streams. And there's plants in the kitchen, like old plants, like old aloes, like there's plants hanging. And the first person who greets me is this beautiful, super gay 70-year-old man from San Francisco who says, "Oh, you're the new guy. Come here and give Frank a hug."
Oh my!
And he held me
God.
awkwardly long in his arms.
Right.
Yeah. And then the second person I met, and Frank, touched me, because he said like he moved to Vancouver Island because he was living in the Castro in San Francisco when the AIDS, virus first came out, and he said, "I watched AIDS kill all my friends.
Right.
I know nobody. All my friends are dead from AIDS. I left and I came here and I've never left the town of Souk." And I was just like, holy shit, I love Frank. Let's make sure that I never yell at Frank.
Right.
And then there was a gardener called Patrice, and she was like, this like hippie, blonde-haired, blue-eyed gardener who is also the Canadian female record holder for speed on a windsurf board and Olympian. And I was like, wow, what a special woman. And then there was another woman, Pia, who she cooked the lunches at Sue Carver House. And she made like green falafel with like way too much garlic and all her own pita breads. And it was like, our friend Evelyn from Evelyn's Crackers, not Evelyn, but what's her name? Dawn from Evelyn's.
Right. Don Woodward.
Yeah. So I'm in this kitchen full of
Great people.
smiling,
Happy.
huggy
Right.
hippies. And I'm like basically a trained assassin.
Right.
Right. And
You're the Terminator, right? Surrounded by lambs. Yeah.
And I remember right away, like day 3, like I want to show my skills off because I'm still dumb and young, And Frank's like, take it easy, man.
No.
Like that plate's a little fussy, no? And I was like, shit, yeah, it is maybe. When I left Sue Carver House, I was basically like
Changed person.
I completely changed. I was just like, okay, no, we can have a TV in the kitchen, We can
Yeah.
there's no more rules at all. I just then I discovered it was all about product. Souk was like the best morels, the best chanterelles, the best pine mushrooms, the best salmon, the best lingcod, the best spot prawns, the best skate, real farmer chicken. And I started immersing myself into true product, right? I was like, wow, these pine mushrooms are unbelievable. And Frank would look at me and go, yeah, the best thing you can do to those things is nothing. I go, what do you mean? And he goes, your brain is probably telling you to fry them or to do it. So let's make some terrine wrapped in saran wrap. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, slice them paper thin into a bowl of chicken consomme. And tell me that's not the best way to cook them. I was like, okay. So I did that. He was right. Dungeness crab. I was going to try picking all the meat out of the Dungeness crab to make a crab cake. He goes, hey, just serve them the crab cold and make a mayonnaise. I was like, really? He goes, dude, go downstairs to your room and eat a half Dungeness crab cold with mayonnaise. I do that. And I was like, that's the best way to eat the crab. He goes, yeah, exactly. You can break the shell with your teeth. Isn't that great? Right? I'm ranting a little bit, but it was like all positive love and sweetness. And
the contrast between the two is unbelievable. And every person who's working in an abusive kitchen should maybe listen to what you have to say, that there are great kitchens out there, that you're surrounded by people who support each other and respect each other.
Yeah.
It's respect, eh? In the end, it's respect. If you're yelling at somebody, calling them a piece of shit, it's that you're showing I have no respect for you. Earn my respect. That's what he's saying when he's abusing people. Earn my respect. And is that the way to earn anybody's respect? By abusing them?
The young people are great, and they're already so much less damaged. What is Gen Z? What do they call this?
Oh, I don't know.
Gen Z, I guess.
They're not millennials? No, they're after, yeah.
I'm Gen X, then there's Gen Z. I don't know, whatever this generation coming up is pretty neat. Might not be the most sense of urgency, hardest workers, but they I think they treat their brothers and sisters better than my generation.
Mine too. I saw, I would, it's funny, I would laugh it off, but what a privilege to be able to laugh off abuse instead of having to take it because you have no choice. That's when I realized I was, the North American kid from TMR whose parents weren't working in a factory. Look, these kids came from really dire backgrounds and they worked fucking hard to get out of their miserable circumstance. And I respected that they put up with a lot of shit. And I hope that they're all doing well today, but I'll never forget the kids who just, anybody with a little bit of a sensitive soul, that kind of abuse rips you apart.
Yeah.
Some people are tough and some people are a little less tough. And I really, David, I got to say, I really feel for young men because I think young men are expected to be really tough and put up with all this shit. And, I have 2 young sons and they're both very sensitive kids. And I even watch how much I yell at them because I put up with a lot more yelling than they do. And I feel for young men in kitchens. They're so expected to be tough all the time. I think that it must be hard on them.
Yeah, I agree. And, I hope for the kids that they just have, we're all old suckers with kids now, right? I just hope that.
Yeah. Like you said, you wouldn't want your kids there.
My children have a better.
You wouldn't want your kids in those kitchens.
I would love to have my kid in a kitchen with me. I would love to have that.
Yeah.
And Yeah.
But you wouldn't want them to be in a kitchen with some jerk yelling at them all day.
I wouldn't like them to be with 20-year-old me or 30-year-old me.
Right. Okay.
40-year-old me was better,
Right.
right? 20-year-old me, no. 30-year-old me, no. 40-year-old me, yes. 55-year-old me, yeah, sure.
Well, that's great that
I
you're,
think 55-year-old me is hugs and
but that's great that you're acknowledging the fact that you were a hard ass chef too. That you did a lot of yelling yourself. That you did yeah.
yeah, but you have to understand that at that time when I was becoming, I was being celebrated for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, don't forget that, like, the critics knew that I was a hard ass chef and I was celebrated for it.
Right.
If anything, nobody discouraged me from, having a
Right.
low food cost, a low salary cost, running a tight ship, being fast on the pickup of main courses, having a sense of urgency, breaking down the kitchen quickly and fast, you know, all of those things, like running a kitchen like a military drill sergeant made me make more money than others,
Yeah.
right? Because I was efficient, I kept costs in line, and the kitchen was clean, the cooks looked clean, and it took a heavy hand. I'll say one thing. Just I worked for one guy once, Thibert, in France, and he picked me up at the airport. He was very sweet, and he said, David, you're a good kid. I'm happy that you've come to work with us. And I'm going to bring you to visit my mother in 2 weeks. I'm going to take you to the Bresse. I'm also going to bring you to Von Romanet and Maurice Saint-Denis in Burgundy to taste wines at the Dégustation du Chapitre. We're going to have a nice time, And he goes, but tomorrow you're going to be inside of my restaurant. And, we're talking to each other right now in the car like two men, right? And you might think that my methods are extreme, but you're with me for a short time, right? You're with me for 6 months. Now, I can teach you not much in 6 months. I can teach you what you'll learn in 6 months. Or you can let me teach you everything I know in 6 months. And the method of delivery is direct, fast. I don't repeat myself, and I will yell at you. But then we're going to have a nice time when we go to Von Romanet, and we're going to have a nice time at the restaurant. And he kept his word. He was horrific to me the next day. And the day after that, he was terrible. Okay? You don't cut artichokes fast enough. Let me show you how I cut artichokes, hein? Jeune? Tu sais pas comment tourner les artichokes? Je vais te montrer, hein? Blah, 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 blah. But you know what? After 5 days, I cleaned artichokes faster than anybody. I cleaned fish faster than anybody. I made ice cream. I prepared the crème anglaise base better than everybody. But the second it was Saturday morning, he was like, Bonjour, David. How are you? Are you coming to the market? And he would be like a teacher. He'd be like, you have to taste this cheese. This is one of my favorite products in all of Burgundy. This is my friend. He's been running this cheese shop for 3 generations. So we'd become friends Saturday morning at the market, and Sunday, he'd come and get me and bring me to his family or taste wine. And he was so nice. But then Monday, again, every week,
he'd rip you.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Right. It's like bipolar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know a chef who has a similar story to that.
But he's not bipolar. He was just like, now we're working, and this is how we work.
Yeah.
But when we're not working, we love each other.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So I was very conflicted in that.
I knew a chef who worked for Guy Savoy. And he said, he told me a story almost exactly like you. He said they ended up going to North America on a tour together. And he said, I got so close with Guy Savoy. He was like my father. We did all these things together. And he said the minute we got back to Paris in the kitchen, he just was back to being the same evil tyrant. And he said it destroyed him because he said, I thought we really had something. And I'm like, no, you didn't have anything. You're right. It's work time. And not work. And the French are very, I saw French people abusive in the kitchen, and then they'd all go out and have a drink together later on. That doesn't happen here so much.
Oh, no. Here you can say, nice haircut and get called out on Instagram for freaking, Here we're at the other extreme, though, of the pendulum sometimes, I remember saying, this is a while ago. I haven't been in a restaurant the restaurant industry for 4 years, but I remember saying, I love what you did with your hair. And as the word hair came out of my mouth, I was like, holy shit, I just fucked up.
Yeah.
Right. And then I was like, did I?
Yeah.
Actually think their hair looks nice.
Yeah.
Fuck. Is that where we are?
Yeah. Well,
And I can't do that because it's creepy or it's inappropriate or it's suggestive towards something or
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
But that's what when I saw that person, the first thing came into my head was like, I like your haircut because I
Yeah.
saw you yesterday. And your haircut's very different than today. And that, like,
Yeah.
I used to get in so much trouble, Leslie, at the door because I'd be speaking, let's say, to you at the bar at Liverpool House in English, and then I'd turn around and my brain is turned on in English, and I'd look at the front of the restaurant, somebody walk in, I'd say, "Good evening," and then they go, "Mais tu vas me parler en français, tabarnak?" Like I'd be like, "Oh, good God, really?" Or I would be speaking in French to someone at the bar, and someone would walk in the restaurant, and I would say, "Bonsoir, monsieur, bonsoir, madame," and please spare me with the native language. I'd be like, "Good God, you just can't win."
But years ago, you told me something interesting in an article that I wrote about you for Fool magazine, and you said that a woman comes to the door and you say, "You look really hot in that dress," right? Do you remember you said that? And you said,
Yeah, well, I said a lot of dumb things.
a lot of women liked it. But I went to a wedding a couple of summers ago, and this woman walks by in a beautiful dress, okay? And my boyfriend Jean turns around, French Canadian of a certain age, doesn't hold back, and he said to her, "You look beautiful in that dress." And she walks away, gives him a dirty look, and she walks away. And I said, "What the fuck did you just do there? Are you crazy?" He's like, "What?" He said, "She looks beautiful in the dress. I just told you." He said, "You're not supposed to say anything, right?"
Yeah,
And he
I don't
said,
know.
"Well, then why the hell did she spend so long getting dressed up for nobody to say anything?"
I like people telling me I look good.
I do too.
I don't take it for.
Oh, the look she shot him, David, it's like, God forbid you tell me I look nice. And he said it in the nicest way. Of course, I got mad at him because I saw the look. Anyway,
Anyway,
maybe we should wrap up there.
maybe you want to talk to me about frangipane?
Oh, you want a quick?
Yeah, so I like that cake. I don't. I make the financier recipe still, and I think I'm doing like what like so.
Financier. So it's a little, for people who don't know, it's a little French cake that was originally baked in the shape of gold bars. That's why it was called the financier. And it's a mixture of icing sugar, temps pourtant, icing sugar, almond powder, egg whites, browned butter, and a little bit of flour, and probably a little vanilla, but you don't even have to do that. And you bake them, and they're very little. They're a little crisp on the outside. They're nice and soft, moelleux on the inside. And you should eat them the day you make them, because the next day they lose their charm.
So then, what the hell is a Bakewell tart then?
A Bakewell tart is so you have a
Is that financier mix in there or no?
no, not at all. So the Bakewell tart. So in the world of almond creams, there's something called crème d'amande, which is almond cream. There's something called frangipane, which is usually made starting with marzipan paste. And then you have something like a financier, which is different because it has egg whites in it. So if anybody wants to make almond cream, which is the most brilliant thing you can have in the summer, because if you have any kind of a tart shell and you make almond cream, you have equal amounts of icing sugar, powdered almonds, butter, eggs, and I always add a little bit of flour. You add a little bit.
So 1 cup, 1 cup, 1 cup, 1
I
cup.
go by grams, so 200, 200, 200 of. So you'll have 200 of. So you have 200 icing sugar, 200 of almond powder. You'll have 200 of butter. You'll have 4 eggs. I'll have to check this. I'm saying this quickly. And then I add about a tablespoon of flour, vanilla. You could put a little bit of almond essence. And if you're in a pastry shop, you add 1/3 of that weight of custard, of crème pâtissière, which makes it even better. And that way it's cheaper because almonds are very expensive. So by adding custard, you lengthen out the recipe.
Now, will that work with hazelnut?
Absolutely. And it's delicious.
Okay, wait, what you do a hazelnut, 50% hazelnut, 50% almond, or
Yes.
100% hazelnut?
Hazelnut is very strong and very expensive, so why not do half hazelnut, half? I made when I was making all these nut butters, if I made hazelnut butter, I do half hazelnut, half almond. Hazelnut alone is very intense. That's almost the strongest nut you can get flavor-wise. It's my favorite too, which is fantastic. But I would maybe put 2/3 hazelnut, 1/3.
Now, this crème d'amande, could you make crème de pistache, or you would have to add?
Absolutely. I would also still add almond in there because pistachios are so expensive and almonds are less expensive. But pistachios don't have a very strong flavor. What a lot of people do with pistachio is they add a little bit of almond essence if you have any kind of pistachio ice cream, like at Laura Secord or something, just close your eyes and taste it. It's green food coloring and almonds. And by the way, a lot of marzipan out there, the blocks of marzipan.
Laura Secord, eh? That's pretty over,
Oh,
eh?
their vanilla ice cream. I think their ice cream is so piggy and delicious, but I try to avoid. Their vanilla is good. Yeah, I really like it. But if you get something like, if when you buy marzipan in tubes, you know what that usually is? That's usually peach pits.
Oh.
It's not even almonds, and that's why it has such a strong flavor. But one thing that's great about those, that kind of frangipane creme d'amande, it's in my first book a lot. You can put that in the base of any tart gel, and then you just put fruit in there and you bake it, and you put plums, amazing. You put raspberries, amazing. Blueberries, amazing. And that is basically a Bakewell tart. You'll put jam at the bottom, and then you'll put this almond cream, and then sometimes on a Bakewell tart you'll put a very thin layer of fondant, or you just leave it, or you cover it with almonds.
You can dress on top of it too, right? If you just cooked it blank, and then you could just basically put fresh fruit on it and whipped cream or shiboost.
Absolutely, yeah. That's like a fruit tart, though. That's like a fruit tart. Then it's not really a Bakewell tart. But it's interesting because in the latest, that Chris Kimball guy does Milk Street. I get his magazine, and he does a Bakewell tart, and he pre-bakes the crust. The reason a Bakewell tart is so cool and so great to make is you don't pre-cook the crust. You just put it in the oven because it's a drag to pre-cook a crust. So you just put this almond cream in a raw shell, fill it up with fruit, bake it, or just put it in there. You can put a little custard on top, cover it with strawberries. That is the best tart in the summer. Raspberries with that. Oh my God. The French do that often. They put a little layer of almond cake, which is this crème d'amande at the bottom, and then they put cream, and then they put the fruit, and wonderful. That's what everybody should be making in the summer. So good and easy.
I just eat tons of watermelon all the time.
Well, you could make a little Bakewell tart.
Watermelon for dessert.
The one with blueberry. Oh well, watermelon is fantastic. Have you noticed on Instagram how many people are doing reels on how to choose a watermelon? I have never seen so many people telling me how to choose I don't know. Is it a big thing now that everybody's talking about how to choose a watermelon? I mean,
okay, so I'll get this. It's funny you say that because I'm a sucker, and I have like my method for choosing watermelon is always by the sound.
yeah, if you knock
I'm
it.
gonna go doom, doom, and then I never choose the watermelon with the yellow spot.
Oh, but you're supposed to, no?
And I saw
Yeah.
some guy on Instagram, and he said, he's like, these all white spot. This one has a yellow spot. So it makes the sound that I like. But then I bought the one with the yellow spot,
And
it's the best watermelon I bought in years.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
So they say that, so the knocking it should be heavy when you hold it. Like it should be juicy, so heavy. They say the spot should be more yellow than white. It must have a spot, which means that it was in the field when it was ripening. There are two more things. One is that the kind of asshole, excuse me, but that's what the kind of butthole of the watermelon should be small and not big. And on the stem side, the stem should be dry and not fresh because that means they cut it when it was ripe and not before it ripened. So there are 5 things to look for in a wallet. And then you can walk in and just pick up a watermelon and it's fine. I don't think I've ever gotten a bad watermelon.
I did once. I got one and it was like alcoholic.
Oh, ooh.
It was like fermenting.
Weird. Did you just eat it straight up? It's the best. It's the best. But you can make all kinds of fun things. You can make watermelon sorbet. Do you remember that thing?
I don't like any of those things.
In Gourmet magazine in like 1975, they made a watermelon baume glacé.
I remember that.
So the exterior, so you make it in a round.
Yeah.
I tried to make this once. It was impossible. And so it's pistachio ice cream and then vanilla ice cream. And then you made a watermelon sorbet.
What were the seeds?
The seeds were flaked almonds and chocolate chips. I know. That's a goal of mine. One day I'll make that thing. It's beautiful. Anyway. There you go. So that's a project for the summer. So what are you doing next week?
I was in the county. I went for a swim. It's great swimming in the county, by the way. If you've not been to the Prince Edward County, North Beach, Sandbanks, even the Wellington Beach, the swimming is so good there. I love good swimming. The water's crystal clean, crystal blue. The bottom is nice. You can go barefoot. It's beautiful. Anyway, but the salt, I was missing the salt.
Yeah, right. Because it's a lake, right? Of course.
And there's something, from the farm here, Maine is like real close. And I know the government and blah, 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 but I don't care. I love the good people of Maine. I have friends there. I've been going since I'm 2 years old, and I can't imagine not going, And I know that, I have friends that run businesses in Algonquin, and
Do they say it's down, or they have few?
yeah, it sucks, man. Like this,
Right.
it's shitty for them. I was just at Ida's Pizzeria over here in Burlington, and he goes, "Dude,
Mm,
thanks so much for coming." And I was like, "No worries. Are we
mm,
coming?" He goes, "None of you are coming. Zero.
right.
You're the only one." And I go, "I apologize for that." And it was a great
Well, they're apologizing on their side. They're the ones saying, yeah.
oh, what he said? He goes, I apologize, man, for, and he goes, no, man, I get it.
Yeah.
We're awful fucking people. We're
Right.
terrible.
Right.
We had a good laugh.
But they're not. They're not.
They're absolutely not. No
They're
government
not.
or which way or politician is ever going to tell me who to love and who not to love and where to go or where not to
Right.
go.
Right.
I'll always go wherever I want. And my friends are my friends of my choosing, period.
But they're in a very bad situation economically. I can only imagine the
So
restaurants.
are we. We're in terrible here.
I meant because of the situation that people aren't going there.
Of course, it sucks for, Maine. It's a big hit. I live on the border of Vermont. Huge hit. You can feel it.
Is it quick to go over the border these days?
You know what? It's actually very quick to go over to there. You know who's making and I'll tell you, this is some kind of bullshit. You know who's making it hard? Coming back into Canada.
Oh,
They've never been worse. It's as if word came down from upstairs to if any Canadians go to the USA, make them wait.
make them suffer.
3 hours at the border to get back into Canada.
3 hours.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. I waited 2 hours the other day.
Wow.
I drove 45 minutes to go for dinner. I came back 30 minutes. I waited with a baby in the car.
Oh.
1 lane open at Phillipsburg. The line was
1 lane open.
2 kilometers long. That's not acceptable. And that comes from upstairs. The border guy was basically apologetic.
Huh.
I go, what's the deal? He goes, we were told. I go, oh, we were told. What the hell does that even mean? But I trying to save $28 an hour by not opening 3 lanes? There's senior citizens there and children, right? It sucks. It's
There are a lot of border crossings through Maine too that you have to get through. Let's say to go from Quebec to New Brunswick, you got to cut through Maine and all this stuff. But those are tiny border crosses. It's like a guy in a gazebo.
well, mine here, Morris's line is tiny, tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I come back, I think they close at 3:45. So I can't drive back. I have to go to Phillipsburg after 3:30.
That's a long one.
Yeah, and it's just not cool. I was appalled, and I was sure that this is some kind of nonsense, some liberal nonsense. Make them wait at the border.
Well, enjoy Maine. You're going to have some nice food in Maine. It's nice food in Maine.
I just want to tell you, I want to get a good lobster in and steamer clams. I like to go to the Trading Post there in maybe in Kittery. You ever been there?
I think I have. I've been through most of Maine.
Kittery? There's that big Trading Post there.
I've been up and down the whole coast of Maine many times over the years. Like all of us Quebecers have been through up and down Maine, Bar Harbor, all the way to all kinds of places.
What I look forward to the most is just swimming in the Algonquin River when the tide comes in, right? You ever do that when the tide comes in? The current is really strong. And I always run into my old Jewish Montreal Algonquin posse who's been going there forever. So there's all these guys. I've been cooking for them. When I was a young cook, they were 50, right? And now I'm 50. And these guys are I don't know, 80, whatever the math. That's bad math.
Do you think you'll run into them now? Do you think they'll be there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, these guys are lifers. They go every year. But I always see them at the beach. And they're saying, Dave, you're coming to swim the river at 3:30. It's high tide. And I'm always God, you guys you're all going to have heart attacks. And they all bring their little snorkeling outfits and whatever. They're super funny.
That's nice. That's nice.
Old doctors and business guys and schmata guys.
Well, have a good time and send us pictures. We'll put them on our amazing Instagram page, which I've got to put some more things on.
Are you doing anything special or?
I'm going to Quebec City, and then I'm going to...
are you going to our first 2 Michelin star restaurant?
I'm not. I'm not. I don't have $1,000 to spare, so I'm going to two other restaurants, which are half the price. And I'm going to do a radio show there. And then I get home and I go straight to the Okanagan and to Vancouver for 5 days. And then I go to France. So it's a busy time, but it'll be good. But
are you going to bring your microphone to France? Can we do a live and direct?
doing a podcast from France. And I got a special microphone, and I'll tell you what the adventures are going on there. And
Oh, that should be fun.
it'll be fun. It'll be fun. But I wish I could go back to Maine. I really love Maine, and this is the time of year to travel, and there are great things to see. And yeah, we'll exchange stories on our holidays. My niece is getting married in France, so I came very, very close to saying I'd make the wedding cake, but I am not making the wedding cake. I'm not going to bring a wedding cake. So just to let everybody know, if you could have a look at our Instagram page, Salt Lake Podcast on Instagram. And just for everybody, if ever you look on our platforms, if you give us a star rating, not only do we appreciate the star ratings, but it helps other people find the podcast. And I know that we've had a lot of people listening. I ran into a woman at the SAQ who came up to me and said, "Hi, Lesley, I was listening to the podcast in my car before I came to buy rosé," which was great. And a lot of people are telling me they're listening, and we really appreciate it. And there you go. So thanks to Dan Delmar at TNKR Media.
Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Have a great week.
Think Bait. TNKR Media. Good talk.